LaQuinta, if you could introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is LaQuinta Martinez, and I am representing the Office of Special Education and Diverse Learners.
Megan.
Good afternoon. I'm Megan Smith. I am the interim Deputy Chief of Prevention and Intervention, and I'm representing the Individualized Review Team for students with 504.
Thank you. And Sarah.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lennon. I'm a Senior Project Manager in the Office of Student Enrollment and Placement.
Melanie.
Hello, I'm Melanie Harrison. I'm the Chief Information Officer.
And we also have additional staff members from the Office of Prevention and Intervention that will help answer any questions in the Q&A. So for today's agenda, we will begin with an introduction to school selection, where we will define the process and review the key changes to this year's process. We will then review a high-level timeline of the school selection process. We will look at the criteria-based schools and then dig into understanding the individualized review process. We will also look at the role of counselors and designees in our schools and review the resources that are available to families. So the introduction to the school selection process. The school selection process allows students who are currently in pre-kindergarten through 11th grade to apply to the School District of Philadelphia, to schools in the School District of Philadelphia that have available space for the 2025-2026 school year. The school selection process is only for families who want to send their children to a school that is outside of their catchment or neighborhood. Students may be enrolled in their catchment or their neighborhood school anytime throughout the year by visiting the school district's website. And if you search for registration, you will find the link and the instructions to register your child in their catchment school. The school selection process requires an online application. The application window opens this Friday, September 13th at 4:00 p.m. and will close on Wednesday, October 23rd at 11:59 p.m. The application is available in 10 languages. It utilizes a centralized lottery and waitlist system. It offers students the opportunity to apply to schools that require criteria, grades, attendance, and standardized assessments. Please note that some of our criteria-based schools or programs also have additional criteria or additional requirements, such as auditions or project-based presentations, and Masterman High School has an Algebra 1 requirement. The school selection process does not include applying to charter, parochial, or private schools. So just want to take a second to review again the key changes for the 2025-2026 school year. And while this is a high-level review of the key changes, you can find more details in our school selection town hall recording that can be found on the school selection website. And I will share that information with you later on in today's session. The key changes for the 2025-2026 school year are as follows. Each applicant will be able to rank their top 5 school or program choices. Prior years had no ranking. So students may apply to up to 5 schools, and they must rank their choices. Also this year, applicants will receive either 1 offer or 0 offers during the initial response phase. In prior years, applicants could receive up to 5 offers, but this year, applicants will only receive 1 offer or 0 offers. Also this year, applicants will remain on the wait list only for schools where they are higher ranked, to which they did not receive an offer. In prior years, applicants stayed on all wait lists and could only move once. This year, applicants may accept multiple higher offers as they come. Also new this year, the application system will no longer accept the PASA as an approved standardized assessment. This is not to be confused with the PSSA. The PASA is no longer an approved standardized assessment for our criteria-based schools. And the zip code preferences have been updated this year to include the zip codes of 19140, 19133, 19132, 19136, 19124, and 19134. Again, I encourage you to visit our school selection website to view the school selection webinar to provide more details about these key changes. The timeline for this year's school selection process is, as I said earlier, the application opens on this Friday, September 13th at 4:00 p.m. Through the months of September, the rest of September, and the month of October, we will host application labs for students and families at various school locations throughout the city. We will also host office hours for our school counselors and staff. The application closes on Wednesday, October 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Throughout the months of November and December, eligibility will be released and the appeal window opens and closes. In December and January, we will have our individualized reviews. Auditions and project-based presentations will take place, and appeals will be reviewed. In January, final eligibility will be released, the lottery will run, offers, acceptances, and wait lists will be made. So let's take a quick look at our criteria-based schools. For all of our criteria-based middle and high schools, students must be eligible based on grades, attendance, and approved standardized assessment scores. Again, some schools have additional requirements such as auditions or project-based presentations, and Algebra 1 is a requirement for applicants to Masterman High School. For grades, we are looking at the best grades from the four core subject areas of English, math, science, and social studies, and is the best grades for each of these 4 core subjects from the previous 2 school years, 2022, 2023 school year, and the 2023-24 school years. All students must have a letter grade for English or both reading and writing. If all 4 core subjects do not have at least 1 letter grade for at least one of the academic years that were mentioned, the student will be marked ineligible for the lottery for all criteria-based schools where they apply. If only 1 year of grades are available, those grades will be used as the student's best grades. An example of this is on the screen. Here you will see a student received an A for year 1 in English and a D for year 2. Because A was the best grade of the 2 years, the A is what is used for criteria for English. The same student received a C in math in year 1 and a B in math in year 2. So B would be used as the best grade for criteria. So you can see that while a student had some D's and even C's and F's on their report cards for the prior 2 years, the A's and B's were the best grades that were used for criteria for those 4 core subject areas. Similar to grades, we are looking at the best attendance record for the previous 2 years, 2022-23 and the 2023-24 school years. Attendance criteria for all schools is 9 or fewer unexcused absences for those schools that have 95% attendance criteria, and 18 or fewer unexcused absences for schools that have 90% attendance criteria. We are only looking at unexcused absences. Excused absences and lateness are not included. Eligibility is determined by the best attendance record from the previous 2 years. If only 1 year of attendance is available, that attendance will be used as the student's best attendance. Here is an example of a student's attendance record. You will see that in year 1, the student had 9 unexcused absences, and in year 2, they had 10 unexcused absences. The 9 unexcused absences is considered the best attendance record, and that is the number that is used for eligibility. Even though the student had additional excused absences in that same year, only the 9 unexcused absences counts towards eligibility. And with the standardized assessments criteria-based schools will use the standardized assessment scores as part of the admissions criteria for those applying to the 25-26 school year. Student applications to criteria-based schools require 1 English language arts or reading and 1 mathematics approved standardized assessment score from the 22-23 or 23-24 school year. Standardized assessment scores are not required for applications to the 11th and 12th grades at criteria-based schools. Again, I encourage you to visit the school selection website for more details about the criteria and the criteria-based schools. So when looking at eligibility for the lottery, in order to be eligible for criteria-based schools, all students must meet all criteria or be determined eligible through an individualized review. For all applicants to citywide and catchment schools, all students are eligible for the lottery, and offers are made based on available space. When looking at appeals for ineligible decision, the district provides parents with an opportunity to appeal a school selection ineligible decision for the following reason. a guardian is unable to fully complete the application as a result of a barrier, which includes language, physical disability, or a custody order. This is the reason why a family can appeal an ineligible decision. I will now turn it over to my colleagues who will review the other type of appeal, which is known as an individualized review.
Thanks, Erica. What is an individualized review? The individualized review determines if the student can be successful given reasonable accommodations and supports at the criteria-based school. The individualized review is the appeal process for students with IEPs, 504 plans, and designated EL students who are applying to criteria-based schools only. The individualized review does not guarantee eligibility for the lottery for any school. If a student is determined to be eligible, they are then placed in the lottery. Eligibility decisions are made before the lottery runs for all students. So who are the members of the individualized review teams? The individualized review teams include experts from the Office of Diverse Learners. They support the individualized review for students with IEPs. Experts from the Office of Multilingual Curriculum and Programs. They support the individualized review for students who are English learners and dual identified, meaning a student who is an English learner but may also have an IEP or a 504 plan. And then experts from the Office of Prevention and Intervention who oversee support for the individualized review for students with 504 plans. Each of these teams also works to include staff members from criteria-based schools. So who are the students who receive an individualized review? Any student who has been identified as having a disability that has a current IEP, having a current 504 plan, or is 504 eligible, or is an English learner. In addition to that, these students are students who are applying to the entry grade of one or more criteria-based middle or high schools during the school selection process. And these are students who meet 2 of the 3 criteria for the schools to which they are applying. And they have requested to waive the 1 criteria that they do not meet. And these students are not eligible, meaning they do not meet all 3 criteria for any of the criteria-based schools to which they applied. So what that last bullet means is that if a student applies to a criteria-based school and they already meet all 3 criteria for that school, they would then not qualify for an individualized review for the remaining criteria schools that they apply to. So which students are not eligible for an individualized review? Students ineligible for individualized review include students who do not apply to criteria-based schools. So if a student is only applying to catchment schools or citywide admission schools, they would not be eligible for an individualized review. Students who do not request to waive 1 criteria, students who selected the wrong criteria to waive, students who are eligible for at least one of the criteria-based schools that they are applying to, students who do not submit the required supporting documentation, and students who need to waive more than one of the 3 eligibility criteria. What does the individualized review process look like? The individualized review team looks at the student as a whole, and they review the IEP, 504 plan, or English learner supports the school can provide. They also review the student's required IEP, 504, and English learner supports and their demonstrated academic growth. The team is looking to see if the student can be successful at the program they are applying to. The individualized review team determines whether students are eligible for the lottery or for audition project-based presentations. Why may a student be found non-eligible after they have participated in an individualized review? A student who has received an individualized review may be non-eligible for a program for the following reasons. 1, the criteria-based school or program cannot be modified to meet the applicant's educational needs without fundamentally altering the nature of the school's program or activity. 2, the student's application did not contain the necessary supporting documentation. Or 3, the school facility does not have the support necessary for the student to safely access the building. Now we're going to review the application process for students who are requesting an individualized review. Who can support the application and individualized review process? Families should contact their school counselor if they need support with the application process. The school-based support team consists of, but is not limited to, the principal or their designee, the school counselor, the special education compliance manager, and the EL point. What does the school counselor's role look like in regard to supporting the application and individualized review process? School counselors will support by reviewing educational supports at each criteria-based school. They will work with the SPECM, which is the Special Education Compliance Manager, the EL Point, and the 504 Case Manager to identify accommodations and supports that students will need to be successful next year. They will collaborate with the SPECM, the EL Point person, and the 504 Case Manager to obtain the required documents for uploading to applications. They will discuss goals with parents and students with BCA support as needed for our families whose primary language is not English. They will also guide students and families to the academic programs that align with their interests and have the supports that the students will need. And finally, counselors will assist families with uploading documents to their applications. How can counselors specifically help students with IEPs? When a student has an IEP, counselors will work with SPECMs to identify IEP supports that the student will need for next year, to identify which schools are a good academic fit. They will work with families to identify if they should request to waive a criteria and which of the 3 criteria they should waive. They will also collect the required individualized review documents to upload to the application system. For students with IEPs, those documents include the full IEP, the transition assessment career inventory. This is for 9th grade students with IEPs only who are applying to criteria-based schools and requesting an individualized review. They will also collect the progress monitoring report if there is a current report, in addition to the final progress monitoring report from the 2023-2024 school year. How can counselors support the process for students with 504 plans? School counselors will work with 504 case managers to determine what supports the student will need to be successful, to identify schools which are a good academic fit, to identify schools which can support medical or physical needs of the student, to work with families to identify if they should request to waive a criteria and which of those 3 criteria to waive, and then to collect the required individualized review documents for upload to the application system. For students with 504 plans, those documents include the 504 plan or a 504 eligibility document showing that the student is recommended to receive a 504 plan, and any additional support documentation that can be helpful for the individualized review team to understand the needs of the student. How can counselors support the application and individualized review process for English learner students? School counselors will work with EL points and ESL teachers to determine what supports the student will need to be successful, to identify which schools are a good academic fit, to work with families to identify if they should request to waive a criteria and which of the 3 criteria to waive, and to collect the required individualized review documents for upload to the application system. For students who are English learners, the required documents include the WIDA access scores or WIDA screener score, and the waiver and supporting documentation for those students. If you have questions after this town hall or throughout the application process and beyond, please feel free to email the Individualized Review Committee with questions specific to students with IEPs, 504 plans, or English learners who are participating in the individualized review. You can reach team members through individualizedreview@philasd.org.
So I would like to take a minute to review other resources that are available to students and families throughout this process. The first resource I would like to review is the school selection website, where you can find our FAQs, timelines, criteria, and all of the information that was reviewed here today. That website is at www.philasd.org/findyourfit. If you have questions regarding the school selection process or the procedures, you may email schoolselect philasd.org. If you are experiencing any technical issues, if you have issues with logging into your application or starting your application, you can direct your technical questions to Family Tech Support at philasd.org. On the school selection website, you will find steppers and resource videos that will be made available to you before the launch on Friday and throughout the entire process. Translated resources are also available on our website. On the website, you will also find a recording of our school selection town hall that reviews the process and all of the rules and changes to this year's process in detail. You will also be able to access the recording of this town hall on our website. Again, the website is www.philasd.org/findyourfit. We also encourage you to participate in the application assistance labs that will be hosted 1 to 2 times a week, beginning September 17th through October 22nd. They will be hosted at various school locations throughout the city. For additional information regarding the application assistance labs, the locations, and the times, you may again visit the school selection website. We also encourage you to use our new school finder tool called Explore. This tool will help you identify schools that you may be interested in, look at the criteria. You will see the extracurricular and athletic activities that are in the school. You may visit or find this tool by either visiting philasd.explore.avella.org, or you may visit it by going to the school district's website, click on the tool schools bar, and click Find My School. Here you will find the contact information and the resources that are available to you. The emails, again, for individualized review, for general school selection questions, and for our family tech support. You will also find that on the school selection website, we have other important dates, information about the 2024 school fair, and the post-secondary readiness information. At this time, this concludes our town hall, but we will give you some time to still ask any questions that you may have in the Q&A box, and members of our team will gladly answer your questions. Megan, are there any questions there that may be worth lifting for the good of the group?
There's a few questions about how students kind of opt into individualized review. So for those who've asked that, the waiver is actually embedded into the application system. So as you are completing the application for your student, there will be a section that will identify them as a student with an IEP 504 or English learner. And then it will ask you if you are waiving one of the three criteria. Whichever criteria you select to waive, that is the criteria that you are waiving regardless of the number of criteria-based schools that you are applying to. So if you are applying to 5 criteria-based schools and you select to waive attendance, that would be the waiver that would be submitted for all 5 of those schools. So you do not like select to waive different criteria for each school. You would just waive, it would be waived for all 5, but you must select which criteria you are waiving as part of the application. There's definitely some questions around if a student is like waiting on an IEP or a 504. I know LaQuenta and myself have been answering those specifically to those areas, but yes, if you have a student who is IEP or 504 eligible and you are waiting on those documents, you would still click off in the application that they are IEP or 504 eligible. Some questions about, will the presentation be shared, Erica?
The recording will be posted on the school selection website, which includes this presentation.
LaQuenta, do you see any other questions that have been kind of repetitive in regard to individualized review?
I do not. I'm answering the questions in the chat,
Okay.
and I do want to reiterate that if a student is been newly identified as having special education services, it would be helpful to upload the PTE and the ER, and then when the IEP becomes available, they can send that in with their application before we do our individualized review. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Erica, I do see there is one question about Algebra 1 and saying that some elementary schools do not offer Algebra 1. I don't want to put you on the spot on that, but I think if you could share anything.
Sure, we recognize that some schools do not offer Algebra 1. We do know that there are families that have looked at Algebra 1 course that was taken outside, which I believe they paid for that course to be taken for their child. But a child must have taken and passed the Algebra 1 course in order to be eligible for masterment. And what that means is at the time of application, when the application opens, before it closes on October 3rd, a family must be able to say the child has taken Algebra 1 in the prior 2 years, 22-23 or 23-24, or currently taking Algebra 1 in the 24-25. That answer to that question is what determines or what is one of the criteria for masterment. You must also meet the criteria for grades, attendance, and standardized assessments. At the time of admission or enrollment into masterment, if a student is accepted and receives an offer and accepts the offer, at the time of enrollment, the family must produce documentation via a report card or transcript to show that the child successfully completed or passed the Algebra 1 course. And that is important because students will not be allowed to attend Masterman High School, and this is for the high school only, unless they have passed the Algebra 1 course. And so that course may be taken at one of the schools or may be taken outside at, another school, another course, but it must be Algebra 1. It is not pre-algebra, it is not Math 8. It has to be an Algebra 1 course.
Thank you, Erica. And I'll answer a question. Someone just said, can you please speak to the process regarding a current eighth grader at Carver or Masterman? Would their spot be honored in ninth grade, and how does this process work? Thank you for asking that question. We have gotten several questions on that, which is prompting us to clarify the process in detail. And the principals of the 5 schools have also received some clarifying information. So I will remind everyone that this process applies to the 5 schools that have a middle school to high school continuation, and that is Carver, Masterman, Hill Friedman, SLA Bieber, and Gamp. So if you are a 8th grade student in one of those 5 schools and you meet the eligibility requirement for your school, if you want to go to that school and you absolutely, number one, you want to stay at your school you are in the case of those 5 schools, you should put that school as your number one choice. You are guaranteed a spot. And if it is your number one choice, you are guaranteed that nothing else will bump it. In addition to that, some parents have said, what if I want to try to get into another school? Will I still be able to have a spot at my current school? Again, if it is one of those 5 schools. And the answer is yes. And let me explain how that will work. If you attend Masterman now, and you would like to try to get into Central, you should rank the schools in the order that you really want to go to. So if Central is something you would prefer to go to ahead of Masterman, which is your current school, you would rank Central number 1. If Masterman is your second choice, you should rank Masterman number 2. When the lottery runs, if you get into Central, congratulations, and Masterman is no longer an option for you. Masterman will be removed from your options. You've gotten your number 1 choice. It is Central. That is where you are slotted to go. If you do not get into Central through the lottery and Masterman is your second choice, because you already go there and we've committed that you can go to your current school. If you don't get anything else, then you get into Masterman. So again, if you absolutely know you want to stay at what we're calling the middle school to high school continuum, then you must put that first. Because if you put anything else in front of that and you get that other choice, your current school will no longer be an option to you. But again, this is a ranked-based system. Rank the schools in the order to which you want to go to. And if you are at one of those 5 schools, you have the opportunity to go to a higher ranked school if the lottery option slates in your favor of a higher choice. But you will also have the opportunity to stay at your current school if you do not get a higher choice. And again, to be very clear, even if you want to stay at your current school and it's one of those 5 schools, you have to actually fill out the application. You have to meet the criteria. You have to put that school number 1, if that's where you want to go, and you have to submit the application. Without following the application process, we do not know that you want to stay.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions?
Erica, when we when we open the lottery acceptance process, is it 5 days or 3 days for the first round? Or have we not published that date yet?
We have not published
Okay.
that. I don't
Okay.
have that answer, but it will be on the website and communications will go out to families.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we will end today's town hall. Again, I want to thank you all for your participation. I want to encourage you to use the school selection website for updates and to please always feel free to contact us via email or through our website under the Contact Us tab, and someone will be able to respond to your question. We wish you all the best, and thank you.